Welcome to the Religious Studies Podcast. This is the deep dive, where we take a stack of sources, articles, research notes, and, well, pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight for you.
Yeah, we sift through it all.
Before we jump in, just a quick note. This deep dive was generated with the help of AI, and you can be confident that all the information we discuss has been carefully verified against the source material provided.
Right. Our aim is really to be your guides through this material, helping you understand what's most important and maybe even what's surprising in the sources you've shared with us.
And today, we're plunging into the really fascinating world of Claude Lévi-Strauss.
Oh, a big one.
Definitely. We're focusing on a particularly intriguing area of his work, the relationship between myth and history, especially, in societies without written records.
And our main source for this is his book, Myth and Meaning. It's actually quite accessible.
Yeah, it is. So, Levi-Strauss, just to set the stage, a monumental figure in 20th century thought, right? Often called the founder of structural anthropology.
Absolutely. And he had this incredible range. He could produce these incredibly dense, rigorous analyses, like in Anthropology Structurale, but then also write something as beautiful and lyrical as Justes Tropiques.
A cerebral analyst, but with the soul of a poet, you could say.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
And his main tool, the core idea for understanding culture, was structuralism. So when he applies that to mythology, what's the basic gist?
Well, structuralism for him is all about looking past the surface stuff, the variations, to find the underlying patterns, the constants.
Okay.
For myths, he saw them as a kind of language. You can break them down into basic units. He called them mythemes.
Mythemes, like phonemes in language.
Exactly like phonemes, the basic building blocks of sound that make up meaning. Mythemes are the building blocks of myth.
So it's not just random stories, it's a system with these fundamental bits you can rearrange.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And he thought that the way our brains are structured, kind of binary left-right,
Yeah.
on-off, makes us tend to organize the world in dualisms.
Male, female, good double.
Culture-nature, raw-cooked, life-death, all those fundamental oppositions. Myths become a way to explore, express, and sometimes even bridge those divides.
That's like a deep-seated way we make sense of everything.
Yeah, a fundamental way.
Okay, that's a powerful lens. So our mission today, digging into myth and meaning, particularly that chapter when myth becomes history,
Right.
is to unpack how societies without writing structured their sense of the past. And maybe more importantly, how looking at that might make us question our own ideas about history.
And that chapter is a fantastic starting point. It came from talks he gave for the CBC, in English, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he even said that having to explain these complex ideas in English for a public audience forced him to simplify and clarify. So it's pretty clear.
Makes sense. Okay, so as he dives into these myth collections, he flags some problems right away, doesn't he? Like big issues with the material anthropologists had gathered.
Does. Two main ones jump out. The first is about the collections themselves, what they actually look like when published.
Right, because sometimes they seem really disconnected, just fragments, like he says, shreds and patches.
Exactly that phrase. But then other times, maybe from a different place, he mentions the Vopes area in Colombia. The collections are incredibly coherent, structured, almost like sagas.
So, which is it? Is the coherent story the original, and the fragments are just what's left? Or were they always bits and pieces that some narrative wise men, as he calls them, put together later?
The classic problem, isn't it? You see similar questions with things like the Bible. Was it originally fragmented and then compiled? Or a unified whole that got broken up?
Yeah.
He's asking if we see the same thing with oral traditions.
Okay, that's the puzzle about the material. What's the second problem he points out? It's more practical.
Yeah, more practical and maybe even trickier. It's about who collected the myths and how they did it.
Ah, the role of the collector.
Right. Historically, a lot of this stuff, especially from North American indigenous cultures, was gathered by outside anthropologists, famous names like Franz Boas, Marius Barbeau.
And they often worked with local experts, right? Collaborators from the community.
Oh, absolutely. And those collaborators were crucial. People like George Hunt or William Benyon with the Tsimshian, incredibly knowledgeable.
But the anthropologist was still kind of setting the agenda, deciding what questions to ask, how to organize it all.
That's the issue. The structure was often imposed from the outside. Maybe they'd organize it cosmologically, first creation myths, then move on to legends, family histories. It fit the anthropologist categories.
Which might not reflect how the tradition actually lived and breathed within the community.
Exactly. It inevitably shapes how the material is presented.
And the source mentions this is changing now, right? Indigenous people are increasingly publishing their own traditions.
Yes, and that's a really important shift. And their reasons are often different, too. It might be for education within their communities, language preservation, or, significantly, to back up current territorial or political claims with historical depth.
That creates a fascinating opportunity for comparison, then. You can look at the outside collections versus the inside ones.
And Levi-Strauss does exactly that. He looks at examples from the Tsimshian on the coast of British Columbia. Specifically, books by Tsimshian chiefs themselves, Chief Walter Wright's Men of Meedic, and another by Chief Kenneth Harris from the 70s.
Okay, so these are inside perspectives. What's the big difference he notices?
The focus is dramatically different. These accounts by the chiefs aren't trying to be a general collection of all Tsimshian myths. No, they zoom in intensely on the history of one specific family, one clan, one lineage, their story.
So Chief Wright's book, Men of Meedic, it's described as the genesis of a disorder, kind of a downbeat story.
Yeah, it's framed as a narrative about a lineage's struggles. It's its sort of downfall. Quite pessimistic, actually.
Whereas Chief Harris's book has a different goal.
Seems so. His account uses history to explain and legitimize a social order, the one that existed historically and is still reflected today in names, titles, privileges. It's taking a sequence of events through time diachronic and using it to validate the structure that exists now, the synchronic order.
It's grounding the present in a particular version of the past.
Precisely. It gives historical roots to current social arrangements.
This is where that line between myth and history gets really fuzzy, isn't it? Especially without written archives.
Yeah.
The stories seem to be doing the work of both.
They absolutely do. And what's really interesting is, even comparing Wright's and Harris's accounts, they share core elements. They seem to be drawing on the same pool of traditional knowledge.
Like they both mention a big event, the destruction of a town.
Yeah, a large town near Hazleton, possibly called Tenleham. Its destruction caused people to scatter. That sounds like it could be a real historical event, maybe even something archaeology could shed light on.
But the reasons for the destruction, the details, those differ.
They differ significantly. The basic type of conflict might be similar. Often it starts with an adultery leading to violence, but who does what to whom changes.
So in one version, the husband kills the lover.
Right? Or in another, the wife's brothers kill the lover, or maybe the husband kills the wife. The core event structure is there, but the roles shift.
And Levi-Strauss has a term for this, an explanatory cell.
That's it. It's like a basic narrative unit, a template for explaining certain kinds of events.
Yeah.
Adultery leads to conflict, leads to disaster. That's the cell structure. But the specific content filling that structure can change.
He calls it a mini-myth because it can be transformed like that.
Exactly. If you change one piece, the other pieces have to adjust to keep the story coherent. It shows that inherent flexibility, that transformability, which is characteristic of myth.
And reading these histories, they can feel repetitive, right? The same kinds of things happen over and over.
They can, yeah. The same themes, the same explanatory cells pop up again, but attached to different places, different people, maybe even different time periods.
That's not bad memory, though. It's part of how it works.
Levi-Strauss argues it is part of the structure. It's not necessarily confusion.
Okay, so looking at these Tsimshian texts, with their lineage focus and these reusable cells, it leads him to question that simple split we make between myth and history.
It really undermines it. We tend to think of mythology as static, a closed system where elements just get rearranged. And history, well, that's open, right? We're always finding new facts in the archives.
But he sees something else going on here, an intermediary level.
Yes, an intermediary level. It bridges that gap. The openness of this kind of non-archival history doesn't come from finding new external facts like we do.
So where does it come from?
It comes from the sheer number of ways these shared mythical cells or explanatory cells can be combined and recombined. Using this common stock of narrative bits, each family or lineage can build its own unique, original story.
A story that explains their specific situation, their successes or failures, their rights.
Exactly. It explains their fate, legitimizes their claims. And this is where he circles back to critique those older anthropological collections.
Because they missed this specificity by lumping everything together.
Yeah, they created a kind of hodgepodge, as he puts it. They lost sight of the crucial fact that each story, even using shared parts, belongs to a specific group and explains that group's identity and place.
Okay, wow. So what does this all mean for us then? For societies like ours, totally immersed in writing, archives, professional historians, Are we really so different?
That's the kicker. Levi-Strauss turns the analysis back onto our own society. He suggests that in societies without writing, mythology often works to ensure the future stays true to the past and present it emphasizes continuity.
Whereas our history often stresses change, right?
Yeah.
Progress breaks from the past.
Right, it emphasizes discontinuity. The future is supposed to be different. But then think about how we deal with our own history.
How so?
Well, you get different historians writing about the same event, the American Revolution, say, or conflicts in Canadian history. And they offer different interpretations, emphasize different things.
Yeah, absolutely. You can read two books on the same topic and get quite different pictures.
And just like with those Tsimshian accounts, we often focus on what's similar between these versions, maybe downplaying the contradictions, or we just decide one is more accurate based on, well, based on criteria that might not be purely objective either.
So his point is we might be, as he says, not at all aware that we're in a similar boat, juggling different narratives about the past, each serving some purpose.
That seems to be the implication. My takeaway, and I think it lines up with his suggestion, is that by really digging into these non-archival histories, maybe even trying to link them with things like archaeology, where possible, we get a better handle on what historical science itself actually is.
So studying them reveals something about the function of history, even for us.
It certainly suggests that. Maybe our scientific history, despite its different methods, serves a function quite similar to mythology in other societies, structuring how we understand our past, shaping our collective identity, and setting expectations for the future.
Wow. That really does blur the line we like to draw between timeless myth and factual history. Looking at how others handle the past forces us to look at our own narratives differently.
It pushes us to ask why certain stories get told, why some are emphasized, why others are maybe forgotten, and what work those stories are doing for us right now.
Absolutely. So maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. If our history, even the scientific kind, functions in ways similar to mythology, what does that really mean for the objectivity we often assume our historical accounts possess?
That's a deep question. Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. This has been a deep dive into Claude Lévi-Strauss, focusing on his ideas about myth and history, particularly from myth and meaning. We hope it's giving you a fresh perspective, something valuable to think about regarding both ancient traditions and how we view our own past.
We hope so.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, please make sure you're following the Religious Studies podcast wherever you listen.
And if you found this discussion useful, maybe learned something new, taking just a second to rate and review the podcast really does help us out.
Yeah, leaving a 5-star rating, honestly, it's a super simple but really effective way to help this deep dive and others like it reach more people interested in religious studies, anthropology, and, just figuring out the human story. Your support is genuinely appreciated.
It really is. Thanks for tuning in.
Until next time.